So what if I told you that um, the person you pay thousands of dollars a month to manage your marketing literally does not know how to build an ad?
Yeah, it's a pretty wild realization when it finally hits you.
Right. Today, we are exposing a very expensive illusion. I mean, think about it for a second. When you hire a contractor to build a custom house, there's this underlying expectation of hands-on expertise.
Exactly. You see the person in the hard hat, they're pointing at the blueprints, walking the site, and you just naturally assume they actually know how to pour the concrete.
Right, it's a baseline expectation. But then you step into the world of digital marketing agencies. Specifically, we're looking at a hard-hitting analysis of the automotive marketing world today, though you will quickly realize these lessons apply to virtually every industry.
Oh, absolutely. It's universal.
Yeah, suddenly that hard hat is just a prop. And our mission for you today is to really pull back the curtain on this. So whether you are a business owner, a marketer, a general manager at a dealership, or just someone fascinated by how businesses spend their money, this deep dive is custom tailored to save you from a very expensive illusion.
Because you really want to spot exactly when you're paying a premium for senior strategy, but, only getting calendar management in return.
Okay, let's unpack this. Every agency account has this person. They sound incredibly important.
Yo, for sure. They have titles like client success manager or strategist or digital marketing consultant.
Yeah, and they're the face of the agency. They host your weekly Zoom calls. They send those very polished, bulleted recap emails.
Right, and they walk you through the monthly reporting deck. They use all the right corporate buzzwords. They assure you that we are monitoring performance or we are optimizing the campaign, and we're seeing really strong engagement.
But the source material we're looking at today drops a massive truth bomb right out of the gate. The dirty truth is a lot of these client success managers, let's just call them CSMs for short, they do not actually know how to do the work.
They really don't.
They don't build the campaigns in Facebook or Google. They don't write the copy. They don't design the creative.
What's fascinating here is the sheer scale of this systemic deception. And, I don't necessarily mean it's malicious, but it's an operational reality rooted in the economics of how these agencies make money.
How so?
Well, agencies will present you with a team, but as the client, you are dealing almost exclusively with that CSM. You rarely, if ever, actually see the media buyer, the copywriter, or the tracking specialist.
Just hidden behind the curtain.
Exactly.
Mhm.
The CSM doesn't set up your audience targeting. They don't understand how the tracking pixel works, that tiny piece of invisible code on your website that actually tracks what visitors do. And in automotive, they usually don't know how your inventory feed operates. That's the automated list that syncs the physical cars on your lot to the ads showing up online.
So they aren't turning the wrenches at all. It is exactly like ordering at a high-end restaurant. You're talking to a very polite, very well-dressed waiter who keeps assuring you the food is cooking perfectly.
That is the perfect analogy.
But if you were to ask them to step into the kitchen, they have absolutely no idea how the oven works.
Right.
They don't know what ingredients the chef is actually using back there, and they have no clue why your soup arrived cold.
Nope, none at all.
You're paying thousands of dollars a month to talk to a waiter who cannot fix the soup.
And that restaurant analogy captures the psychological effect this has on you, the client.
Okay.
Because the waiter or the CSM delivers this beautifully polished presentation, you mistake that polish for actual technical competence.
You assume because they can read the menu so eloquently, they must know how to cook.
Exactly. But let's look at why agencies actually structure themselves this way. A true senior media buyer or a brilliant marketing strategist, well, they're expensive. We're talking six-figure salaries.
Right, they aren't cheap.
An agency just cannot afford to have their most expensive talent sitting on 40 different hour-long Zoom calls with 40 different small businesses every single week. So they hire a junior account manager for a fraction of the cost to act as a buffer.
So if they aren't doing the work and they're just acting as a buffer, how does the work actually get done? Because that setup sounds like a total recipe for a massive communication breakdown.
Oh, it leads directly to the ultimate game of telephone. Because the CSM is essentially a middleman, the context, the real boots-on-the-ground reality of the dealership gets entirely lost in translation.
Like, give me an example of how that breaks down.
Well, our sources outline this exact scenario. Imagine a general manager at a dealership is just having a rough month. They get on the phone with the agency and say, listen, we have way too much inventory. We need to push high payment trade customers right now, not bad credit shoppers.
Okay, so a very specific, strategic operational directive from someone who knows exactly what they need to survive the month.
Right. So the CSM hears this, opens their internal task software, and writes a note to that hidden team behind the curtain. And the note simply says, "Client wants payment campaign."
Oh, wow. All the nuance is completely gone.
Completely wiped out. So the media buyer, who is sitting in a cubicle 3 states away, just sees payment campaign and builds a totally generic lead form.
And I bet the copywriter just writes something incredibly vague like, want to lower payment.
You guessed it. The designer throws a stock photo of an SUV on it. The campaign launches. The leads start rolling in, and they are complete junk.
Because the ad is just attracting people with terrible credit looking for a miracle, which is the exact opposite of what the general manager explicitly asked for.
Exactly. And on the next call, the CSM just smiles and says, "Well, we are monitoring performance."
That is infuriating. Now, I do want to push back on this slightly, just to play devil's advocate for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
Isn't translation supposed to be a good thing? Like, if this client success manager speaks both agency language and dealership language, shouldn't they be the perfect bridge between these two incredibly different worlds?
That is the ideal theory, yeah.
Mhm.
But it falls apart in practice because they don't actually speak both languages equally. They are fluent in agency metrics, but they are completely illiterate when it comes to the actual sales process.
Ah, I see.
So when a dealer gets frustrated and says, "These leads you're sending us are not sellable," the CSM's brain translates that dealership pain into the only language they know, they hear. Client is concerned about cost per lead.
They reduce a massive complex business problem into a tiny dashboard metric. That actually reminds me, I remember once getting this glowing performance recap email from a vendor. It had all these like rocket ship emojis celebrating a 400% increase in impressions.
Let me guess, they were absolutely thrilled.
Oh, they were ecstatic. Meanwhile, our actual sales were down 20% that month. I just sat there reading this email thinking, congratulations, a record number of people ignored us today. It's just maddening.
Right, because the agency responds by tweaking the targeting or maybe adjusting the budget to get that cost per lead down, but they completely miss the actual root problem.
Which is that the ad is attracting low-intent shoppers because the offer sounds like bad credit bait.
Exactly. The CSM translates the problem incorrectly because they rely entirely on data dashboards to understand the business rather than any actual lived experience on the sales floor.
So if they don't understand the sales floor, what do they actually understand?
They understand the spreadsheet. These reps are trained, essentially, to be spreadsheet managers.
Okay, so they can walk you through the reports beautifully. They can explain impressions, clicks, click-through rates. They can proudly tell you that a campaign generated, say, 187 leads this month.
But they cannot answer the real questions that actually matter to the survival of the business. A spreadsheet organizes work, but it doesn't sell cars. A spreadsheet can show that an ad launched, but it can't tell you if the ad should have launched.
Right, the dealer doesn't care about the number 187. They
No.
need to know, did those 187 people actually answer the phone?
No.
Did they have current auto loans? Or did we just waste the business development center's time?
Exactly.
And just for those outside the industry, the BDC is the team of people whose entire job is to call, text, and email leads all day to get them to actually walk through the front doors.
And a dashboard tracking cost per lead has absolutely no way of telling you if the marketing message speaks to a real buyer problem. This whole thing stems from a profound lack of operational experience.
Because many of these agency reps have never sold a car.
Right. Most of them haven't. They have never desked a deal, meaning they've never actually sat down, crunched the complicated financing numbers, and had to look a customer in the eye to tell them why the bank rejected their loan. They just look at a green arrow pointing up on a screen and assume everything is totally fine.
Okay, but let me ask you this. If the metrics on the dashboard look great and the charts are all pointing up and to the right, why does it actually matter if the CSM hasn't personally sat in a sweaty Saturday morning sales meeting?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it comes down to something we can call the empathy gap.
The empathy gap, I like that.
Yeah. The CSM has never lived the operational pain of chasing dead Facebook leads for 4 hours straight. They have never dealt with an angry customer walking into the showroom, demanding a car, only to find out their actual financial situation doesn't match the magical Luftpayment promised in the ad.
Because to the dealer on that sweaty Saturday, bad leads mean wasted time, burned out salespeople, and lost revenue.
But to the CSM sitting in an air-conditioned office on a Tuesday, lead quality complaints are merely a metric to be nudged on a spreadsheet. They don't feel the weight of it. They don't see it as a fundamental failure of the marketing strategy.
That explains so much. When the dealer says the sales team can't work these leads, the CSM just recommends, more nurture emails.
Right, because they fundamentally don't understand why a lead with a vehicle trade-in is incredibly valuable, while a random internet form fill from someone with a 500 credit score is just a massive drain on resources.
And because they lack this deep, visceral knowledge of the business, they lack authority. When push comes to shove on a tense client call, their behavior shifts entirely away from being a strategic advisor.
It becomes purely about self-preservation.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The sources point out the ultimate red flag you need to listen for on your next agency call. It is a very specific phrase, listen for. I'll take that back to the team.
Ah, yes. The absolute hallmark of the messenger.
Right. You ask why the leads dropped? I'll check with our media buyer. You ask why the wrong vehicle's in the ad? I'll ask creative.
I'll have our tracking specialist look into it.
Exactly. If every single meaningful question has to be taken back to the team, they are not managing the account. They are just relaying messages. You are paying a premium for a human carrier pigeon.
And notice how they soften the truth when things go wrong, too. Because they represent the agency, not the dealer, their language is heavily sanitized to protect the agency's revenue.
So instead of admitting, you know what, our creative was completely generic and it failed, they'll pivot, right?
Oh, yeah. They'll say something like, we are currently testing additional messaging angles to optimize performance.
Which brings up an incredibly astute observation about their real job. The CSM's actual job isn't marketing strategy at all. Their literal job description, how they get their performance reviews internally at their company, is relationship preservation.
It's preventing client churn.
Right. They are graded on meeting attendance, how fast they reply to your emails, and overall account health. They're absolutely not graded on sold units. They aren't graded on front gross profit, which is the actual money the dealership makes on the sale of the car itself before financing and extras.
This highlights how incredibly dangerous misaligned incentives are in a business partnership. Think about the reality of this. A client success manager can be considered highly successful inside their agency. They can get promotions, they can get end-of-year bonuses, simply by keeping the dealer comfortable and sending the monthly reports on time.
Even if the actual marketing campaigns they're overseeing are incredibly mediocre.
Exactly. They can achieve all of that while barely generating a return on investment for the client.
Nice doesn't sell cars. I feel like I need to shout that from the rooftops.
Yeah.
A polite, friendly person setting a clean meeting agenda does not put money in the cash register.
Competence does. But because the junior CSM lacks competence in the actual execution, they become a pure order taker.
Give me an example of that.
Well, let's say the dealer has a terrible idea. They are stressed. They want to run a chaotic ad with way too much text. Or they want to push a really weak offer just to get something out the door quickly.
A true strategist would stop them. They would say, no, that's a waste of your money. It will ruin your brand perception, and here is why.
But the CSM can't say no. They don't know enough to challenge the dealer. They just smile and say, great idea, I'll take that back to the team to get it built.
So what does this all mean? If you're sitting there listening to this and you're realizing that your weekly marketing calls feel incredibly hollow, just polite chats, going over vanity numbers with no sharp insights or hard truths, how do you actually cut through the polite smiles?
You have to reclaim control.
Right. How do you unmask the strategist and find out who is actually spending your hard-earned money?
You have to demand direct access to the real operators. The agency often hides the real expert, the sharp media buyer, or the true strategist behind the curtain.
And they do that to protect their internal workflow and, frankly, to protect their margins. They want to control that communication bottleneck.
Exactly. But as the client writing the check, you have to ask specific, hard questions that a middleman simply cannot fake their way through.
The sources provide an amazing checklist of questions you should literally ask your rep on your next call. Write these down, ask them. Can you personally build a Facebook or Google search campaign from scratch right now?
Yes. Do you know exactly where our leads route into the CRM?
Do you know what the salesperson actually sees on their computer screen when that lead arrives?
Do you know which specific campaigns sold cars last month? Do you know our cost per sold unit?
Those questions are brilliant because they pierce the veil of the spreadsheet. If they stumble or if they fall back on, I'll have to take that back to the team for those operational questions, you instantly know you are dealing with an account handler, not a strategist.
And you shouldn't be paying premium agency prices for senior level strategy just to get a note taker with a monthly retainer.
Absolutely not. Now, there is absolutely nothing wrong with account handling. Organizing meetings, sending recaps, wrangling creative requests, that is real, necessary work. But it needs to be priced honestly as administrative support.
Yeah.
Don't sell me a master architect and deliver a receptionist.
True strategy is an entirely different beast. Strategy is not maintaining a dashboard.
What is it then?
Strategy is knowing exactly what buyer you want, knowing what specific emotional or financial message will move them, knowing what digital channel will deliver that message most efficiently, and most importantly, knowing how that digital ad translates into an actual human sales conversation on the physical showroom floor.
A real advisor understands the intricate mechanics of the digital platform and the messy, chaotic reality of the physical store. It's about producing conversations that salespeople can actually work and close.
Exactly. Managing communication, sending emails quickly, setting up Zoom links, formatting Excel sheets, that is a much, much smaller job than managing marketing.
So to our listeners, stop mistaking fast email replies and clean meeting agendas for actual marketing expertise.
This raises an important question, though, a final thought I want to leave you with, which really builds on this entire dynamic.
Oh, what's that?
We are entering an era where AI and automation are advancing at a staggering pace. Right now, AI can instantly generate performance reports, it can build ad creative, it can pace daily budgets perfectly, and it can summarize complex data into polite recap emails in seconds.
Wow. Yeah.
So the spreadsheet manager role, the person whose entire job is just summarizing a dashboard and relaying messages to a media buyer, they are the very first ones in the crosshairs of this automation wave.
Oh, wow. You are completely right. The messenger is the easiest part of the chain to replace.
If your agency rep is just a translator between a dashboard and an email inbox, what happens when the dealership realizes they can just bypass the middleman entirely?
That's a huge point.
What happens when they realize they can talk directly to the machine doing the work? If the human isn't bringing any strategic pushback, any empathetic floor experience, or any bold ideas to the table, will the traditional bloated agency model just collapse under its own weight?
That is a fascinating thing to think about. When the client realizes the hard hat was just a prop all along, they might just start using the robots to pour the concrete themselves. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Whether you're selling cars, software, or services, take a really hard look at that next recap email you receive. Ask the tough questions. Make sure you know exactly who is building your house. We'll see you next time.